I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to the candidates forum. It's just an opportunity to get to meet the candidates. We're not going to have a debate. It's not going to hash issues out. We're just going to get to know the candidates tonight. So it's going to be more of a living room discussion or fireside discussion, if you will. If you would, please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jim Caldwell. I've been town moderator now for, let's see, election next year will be 12 years, 4 terms. So haven't quite met our previous moderator's record, but...
We're going to bring a microphone because we can't hear you back there.
Oh, okay.
And
modern technology as well. Oh, great, thank you. It's like town meeting. I never know how loud the thing's going to be when I go to talk. Can you hear me now? Is it better? Yes. Okay. Still doesn't sound right. There it goes. A little louder. Anyways, tonight is going to be just a general discussion. The candidates have been provided questions in advance, so they've had a chance to prepare. There's not going to be any surprises tonight. There's not. It's just a chance to get to know the candidates so you can make an educated decision on the upcoming election. I'm going to pass the mic down, and because we do have one mic, and I'll let the candidates introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Joan Burkhart. How are you?
I'm Vaughn Schlegel. Good to meet you all.
All right, we flipped a coin here at the beginning of the night to determine who would get the first question. So Vaughn was the victor on that one. So the first.
I was.
Oh, you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Equality, you got it. Never mind. So the first question will go to the first candidate.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. The big question. Why do you want to be a selectman? I'm going to break that first question up into several parts. I know
Sure.
you've prepared for it, but I'm going to break it up and why do you want to be a selectman? What's driving
Sure.
your decision?
If you'll indulge me that I have notes because it's nerves and I like something to fall back on. But regarding wanting to become a select board member, I actually feel a sense of duty and responsibility to run. I've actually watched as Jason, Brooke, and most other folks who've given generously of their time to run for or serve on and be boards and committees being dragged on social media. And this BOS spot opened up, and so I watched and I waited, and I figured that any one of the folks who are, vocal and passionate about what's wrong and how it should be done would jump at the chance to run for this spot so they could finally help realize those suggestions that they're so passionate about. But no one did. And I understand why, really. It's the same reasons I never ran before. Work, family, personal obligations, time, bandwidth, and notably, as we've seen, particularly of late, the really damaging vitriol on social media. That's just not healthy for anyone. I think we are all just human beings doing the best we can with what we have to give. And I value democracy deeply, and that means choice. And I feel that candidates should never run unopposed. I have the skills and experience to help, so like many of you, even though I work 2 jobs and I have a full life, I volunteered. I can do it, I will do it, and I'll do it well. I'll listen and hear and keep an open mind, knowing that folks who have concerns or need help are just doing their best too, honestly.
Okay. I'll pass that down to Vaughn.
Sure. So it's been something I wanted to do for quite a while now. I'm a public servant at heart. It's just what I feel I do best, serving my community, and this was an opportunity for me to do that even better, to benefit the town in any way I can. I did a lot of research on the job in general. I've been to all the Board of Selectmen meetings since I moved to town to try to get a feel about how the job is. And, I just want to give back to the community, be the voice and the representation of the people in the community, hear their concerns, and try to do something about it.
This question will be again for you, starting up, is what experience do you bring to town government, or what experience have you had, I guess, with town government? Have you been involved in any town committees or anything up to date? This is going to be for both of you, but we'll just keep the order going. What other experience do you bring to the job that, outside experience that will give you a better opportunity to do well?
When I read this question, my understanding was just what experience generally
Right.
do you bring? Okay, yeah.
I kind of tweaked
Sure,
a little bit.
absolutely, yeah, no. So about my professional experience, I taught instructors at the FBI Academy in Quantico who were having trouble figuring out how to best use digital technology to teach their new agent trainees. And there were obviously a lot of restrictions on what can and can't be shared in certain ways. That was one of the most challenging professional experiences I've ever had in my life, and intimidating. I've served as a leader on boards and committees at the international, national, regional, and institutional level for the past 12 plus years. Now and for the past 2.5 years, I am full-time program chair at a large state university. I support and review over 100 faculty and thousands of students every year. I do everything from helping resolve problems that have escalated to me between faculty and students, between faculty and students in other departments. It can get pretty messy. And I serve on several interdepartmental committees at which, for example, we have one where we are trying to find ways to be more effective in less time and with fewer resources. That seems to be the way everywhere, isn't it? Not just NB. There's not many resources and you just got to try to put together what you can. We're finding ways for students to succeed so that they don't drop out, to keep faculty and student morale up, in setting program and university policy. My experience has really made me very disciplined and mission focused, but also empathetic, all of which I think are at the core of influencing how I approach problems and how I interact with people. This would be my first town role. So this professional experience, I think, translates well and could be extremely useful, that leadership experience, in a role like this.
Right. Okay, Vaughn?
My time on the Finance Committee has given me pretty good opportunity and insights to see how the town is operating, both physically and financially. I've had the experience to look at the budget and work with department heads, other committees in town, and the Board of Selectmen themselves in trying to overcome some of the challenges the town faces. I'm going to say it's not an easy job. I believe they're pretty stressed out almost every time we meet up, but I take pride in that job because I feel like I'm making a difference at that level, trying to help out everybody here in town as it is, because we don't want our expenses to go up. We're already all struggling in our individual lives. We don't need the burden of what's going on in the town put on us as well. I'm also a union steward, and that has helped me develop my skills with negotiating, handling grievances, bargaining in good faith for parties involved in situations, and just looking into resolving problems between parties, whether it's an appeals process or anything like that.
Of all your qualifications, what do you think would most aid you in carrying out the job that is on the Board of Selectmen? You have to wear a lot of hats. You have to be negotiators. You have to solve problems. You have to settle disputes that didn't make it settlement at lower levels. What one attribute do you have that you think will best suit the job?
For me, I think it would be conflict resolution skills, which align with leadership in that, and again, like I said, understanding that everybody's a human being with their own set of problems. They're all coming to the table typically with good intentions, and that they're concerned, they just want to be heard. Most times I find that when problems arise, it is because people don't feel like they're being heard. They feel like their concerns are being dismissed, or they're falling on deaf ears. So I think just being, having that open mind, that open ear, and knowing that when people come to talk to us, that we're going to hear them, that we're going to listen with intent and not wait to talk.
I'd like to consider myself a pretty good diplomat. I go into every situation listening to all sides of a story. Everybody's got to be heard. We can't just take one side when we hear something and make a decision based off of that. It's only fair to equitably place that upon everybody to make sure their voices are heard and make a decision based off of that factor. You have to be reasonable, you have to be logical about situations, and just do your best to completely leave emotion and favorites out of everything.
So one of you is a relative newcomer, and I'm not going to say which one, you're going to have to figure that out. And the other is on record in North Brookfield as having a brief stint away and then returning to town. What do you think you have gained being away that is going to be most beneficial to you as a candidate as selectman? I mean, what makes you worldly, and why is that important to being a selectman?
It's funny you use the term worldly, because when I was in my early 20s, that's why I thought I needed to leave here, was to suddenly become worldly, whatever that meant, at the time. But as I mentioned in my local newspaper article, I think everybody should have a home they want to come back to, and for me, it has always been and will always be NB. When I did leave in my early 20s, I thought it was something I had to do to make my own mark, to be worldly. I didn't know what worldly meant. I just knew that at that time, it felt like something I needed to do, just, when you're young, to prove I could do it. I don't know. I lived in a city out of state for 5 years, and I loved it, but it never really felt like home. I taught middle school, I got married, and then I had my daughter Julia, and that is when everything changed. I gained life experience and definitely a feeling of independence that I really needed. But both of those really cemented my love for this fiercely independent little town. We call it. Sorry,
John can't hear you back there.
I'm sorry.
It's not real loud.
It's dropping. I'm slowly dropping it as I'm waiting to. I can feel it.
The mic's not working.
It's not?
No, it is.
It doesn't sound loud.
It hasn't been.
Say something on the mic.
Hello?
There we go.
That was all the way up.
You can't tell. I was dropping.
Maxed out.
I was dropping it.
No.
That's on me. I could feel myself slowly doing it, and I was
Direction a
too.
little bit. Okay, let's try it again. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, I don't know when I faded out, but,
There you
so,
go. Get right on.
okay, yeah, so I gained a lot of life experience, and I felt it, but it really made me see why I love this little town. And I remember growing up feeling, even knowing then, that we were fiercely independent, because it was almost like this don't mess with North Brookfield thing when it came to sports or when it came to anything, and guess what, it still is. But having Julia really made me miss home. I missed my parents. I missed my family, and I didn't want to raise my daughter in the city, even with all a city supposedly has to offer, and it does. But at the same time, I wanted her to grow up valuing tradition, family, nature. That was huge for me. Putting her feet in the grass, community. And so I bought the land right across the street from my parents and built a house, and that's where we've lived for the past 24 years. And I have the perspective of not having been here to know how special it is to be here. But having grown up and lived here for so long, I am very familiar with the issues we have faced over the years, how we've reacted to them, what's worked and what hasn't. And I just feel like I know what it means to be NB. if that makes sense. That's a phrase we used growing up, to be and be. And I'm really proud of that. But that perspective was important for me. I did not realize, when you're young, how amazing it is to live in a small town until you leave it.
Okay. Remember to choke up on it.
So I've lived in a number of towns around the area my whole life, whether it was Spencer, New Braintree, Warren, or Ludlow, and I've always been very into politics. Even on the local level, I've paid attention to what's been going on in all the towns I've lived in. I especially took note in Spencer, and a little bit in Warren, I would say, probably about the time when I started taking observations into what's going on the municipal level. I've seen the things that develop in those towns, the projects they work on, how the town's spending its money, the complaints the citizens make, and what the local government is doing there that benefits the town, or what they do is frankly ticking off the citizens. I've taken note of that my whole life, and I've agreed with a lot of the things that people have said. And I've made those comparisons here and seen and heard from people individually or as a group. I've seen people complain on Facebook, and it's a lot of all the same problems. And I've taken note of all those things. And my biggest thing is to have people come to me and tell me what you think is wrong. I want to do my best for everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care if we don't get along. It's going to be my job to work for you.
Okay. Now comes the $64,000 question. What do you consider to be the number one issue facing North Brookfield? Why? And what would you do to fix it or to impact it?
I would say it's the $1.6 million question, actually. Clearly, it's our budget. I mean, I shouldn't say clearly. That's how I feel, and most of the people I've talked to, I think, feel similarly, that we are in a financial crisis. We have a $1.6 million deficit. Huge school cuts have been suggested, $800,000 to the school loan. And I think most of us are thinking something has to happen, but how is that going to affect my taxes? I feel that deeply. Working 2 jobs, we all, that's a scary thing. To address it, I think we have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, make some difficult choices, and I mean, not popular, maybe right, but not necessarily popular, and find ways to bring in more revenue. That's going to be key. Like grants, for example, and ways to attract more businesses. I'm excited because we're in the process of hiring a new town administrator with a strong financial background. So by either supporting that town admin or just getting out of their way so they can do their job, offering whatever they need to do that, that'll help address the problem. I understand that this has been really challenging for our finance committee too, and I want to acknowledge that because that is not easy and incredibly stressful. I would want our 2 groups, the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, to work together so we as taxpayers can see what our money is supporting and also, the key, feel good about that, right? Another idea to address this I would throw out is sharing services with other towns, developing relationships with them so that we can share the financial load. As you mentioned, Vaughn, all surrounding towns around us, they're dealing with the same things we are, right? So one of the greatest motivations for service sharing is the potential cost benefit, like savings from bulk procurement, reduced administration costs, reducing duplicate functions. We might have opportunities to share sewer, highway, fire, police, share supplies like VR tools, other equipment, share human resources functions. Reducing costs is the most obvious reason to share services, but there is a pretty significant added value. The opportunity for town government, like the Board of Selectmen, to focus on its core intent, which is delivering services to its citizens. And I think the town administrator role will really help free up the load so that we can focus on that. As an example, we already have a public health nurse that's shared among multiple towns. It's working really well. Didn't cost us a thing. Lester found a grant for that, so it cost us nothing. Service sharing provides more people to work on grant writing and generally tapping into other people's strengths. I know we have a ton to offer in terms of talent and equipment, and so do our neighboring small towns who are struggling. And I think that's an approach really worth considering.
I will also say the biggest problem is the budget. And I think almost everybody in this town is gonna agree with that at this point. Personally, I've had a hand in helping to try to fix the fiscal year '24 and '25 budget. The '25 budget is still in the works, but, you know, we're working on it almost every week and meeting up on how we can get together and solve this issue. And like Joan said, it might not be pretty. It's, you know, everybody's gonna be making sacrifices, but the way I look at it is it's a conviction, not a sacrifice. We are gonna do everything we can to hold together our small little town here. And that deficit keeps growing because of expenditures not meeting the amount of revenue we have. I mean, we have mandates from the federal government, like our sewer upgrades. We have state mandates on the school, which is burdening the school's costs. We have contractual salary and benefit increases, which happen everywhere. These are growing expenditures, office supplies, utilities, gasoline, but our revenue has stayed the same. But nobody wants our taxes to go up. I don't think anybody's of that opinion. An override is the very last thing I want to see happen, and I'm sure a lot of people share that opinion. I would too also like to see how we could grow our revenue base, and that would be through businesses, hopefully. I mean, there are a lot of other land in town that you can build houses on. That's great too, but we also have untapped industrial zones which are fit for business growth. I would say we should revitalize our Economic Development Committee, who would specialize in looking at ways that we can put more businesses in town. There's vacant storefronts still. Yes, we're getting more business in town, but there's still a long way to go with bringing more in. The land I talked about, we can look into developing that and seeing what kind of retail space might want to come in. We could put a hardware store, a gravel pit, a co-op, anything that could benefit the town to create jobs or, you know, provide services for people so they don't have to leave town, and also grow our revenue base. You know, I would also urge departments to keep looking at ways they can save money and keep writing grants. Our departments have been doing a pretty good job at that, looking at ways they can get gear or new vehicles or anything to help out. We need to look at all ways that we can help finance our own departments, because without them, we don't have a lifeblood in this town. We all care about our fire department, our highway department, water, you name it. We want to do the best for them so that they can provide for all of us.
Okay, I'd like to build on this question a little bit. Having been a selectman myself, and knowing there's a former selectman here in the room, one of the biggest challenges we had as selectmen was the dealing with school choice and the impact it has on the town side of the budget. For those that don't know, the way the school choice is figured, school choice out students, the money to pay that tuition to the next district comes from the town side of the budget. In other words, the fire department, the highway department, the police department, all the general side accounts that we have on this side of the town fund that money to the accepting district. School choice in to our district, the money goes directly to the school. We see no impact on that in the town side of the budget. That's just the way they set it up when they changed the ed reform policies, and that was to prevent towns from gutting their school systems and just letting them go downhill. So the poor impact to our town is that if we have a large choice number out, we have less money to work with on the town side of the budget. So, you mentioned making tough decisions. How would you deal with the school choice issue that is affecting us so drastically? If we can fix school choice, I think we can fix everything, but what are your thoughts on that? How would you advance to that?
It's funny because I had several people reach out to me recently to ask that very question, knowing what I do for a living, ask, you know, what are your thoughts on this? The hard part with that is it's not about my thoughts, it's about what you want. And that's what it comes down to. It's about putting together, I mentioned we're a fiercely independent small town. I graduated from North Brookfield with my entire class of 51 other students besides me, 52 kids. I loved our school so much, and I'm so glad that I had that experience of that small town, so I've got a lot of pride in that, right? And the last thing I want to see is for our school system to fail. I mean, that's our future, right? However, you know, I know that there are a good many people in town, and I shudder to even say the word regionalization, but a lot of people are excited about that. A good number of other people in town are wanting to say, hey, we have a really solid framework here, we've got a new building, we've got great teachers, we don't want to lose jobs. You know, we're fiercely independent, we love this town, especially for kids who are already in this school system, right? But you can't have it both ways. And so that comes down to us deciding where we want to put that money. And it comes down to taxes, for example. Like, are we willing to pay for it? If this is what it's going to take to save our schools, are we willing to put that money out there to do that? If we're not, then we can't. To me, it's you know, not that complicated in that regard. I'm not trying to minimize it or diminish it. But that's a decision that I can't make. That takes, you know, that's something that the town would have to decide. I think it's an extremely complicated issue. I think it does, you know, have a lot to do with how fiercely independent and how proud we are. But at the end of the day, with the budget crisis that we have, and we're a working class community, it comes down to dollars and cents for a lot of people, I think. So I think it means taking, an extremely close look and going over I know there was a study that was done on what the cost of regionalization would be, how that would impact us, what it would cost to stay, you know, in independent, to stay in North Brookfield schools. So determining that and looking at what is our value system, right? What do we value the most, and are we willing to make that sacrifice or make that investment? That's where it lies. That's not a decision, you know, I could make on my own.
When it comes to the school, I think my first thing that I would suggest is the Board of Selectmen meet with the school committee and the superintendent on a more regular basis. I think this is one of our biggest problems in town, and you know, I said the budget, but the school is more than half of the budget. And as Jim had pointed out, there's a tremendous amount of money leaving the school when students leave. Now, the money's not the only aspect of it. We'd like to see our kids have their education in our town. Now, we don't provide a lot of things for these kids, and that's why they leave. We're lacking sports teams, certain extra after-school activities, extracurricular, just alternative classes in general. I'd like to talk to some of the people that are the professionals at the school and pick their mind about what they think the problem is themselves. As far as the citizens' input, we could have more town meetings to discuss strictly the school. I think it's vital that we talk about the future of the school. It's not something that we can just put off into the background and ignore it. As far as regionalization goes, though, that's another topic. And from what I understand, we keep getting played along with regionalization. We keep hearing other towns don't want to talk to us, they're putting us off, they're ignoring us, we're waiting on lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's time somebody puts their foot down and says, look, we need to do business. We need to get serious about this issue. Is this happening or not? Don't lead us around and promise us things and dangle this string in front of us for years and years so that this is an issue that never gets resolved. I think everybody wants an answer on this sooner or later.
All right. In Massachusetts, the Select Board serves as the chief goal-setting and policy-making agency in the town. The duties and responsibilities for the day-to-day management of the town shall be delegated to the town administrator. And we briefly touched on the administrator, but what kind of collaboration would you like to see with the town administrator, and how would that go?
That's actually the opportunity I'm most excited about with this position. I specialize in adjustment, typically working with college students, but helping them through their first year of whether it's grad school or undergrad. That's kind of where my experience lies. So in the short term, I see it being super helpful for the Board of Selectmen to create a list of priorities in order for the town admin. That way, that person has a starting point. They can work through them one by one in order of importance or urgency. I'd like to see collaboration on annual personnel reviews for superintendents, staff, employees. I'd like to see us creating more cohesive work environments so we're not working so much in isolation. The term in silos, you're probably all groaning hearing that because we all hear it at work so often, right? But working in silos, but that is what leads to redundancy and miscommunication. And stealing time away, overlapping something that either you could have collaborated with someone on and gotten done in better in less time, or doing something twice. That happens, right? The highway department, for example, has high turnover, and many of our offices I know have low morale. So I think we need to find ways to work with the town administrator to show our appreciation to our really, really good town employees, because they are great, most of them. I mean, we really are fortunate to have good town employees. So I'd like to see a central repository or hub, like for example, the website. When I look at it, I think we might not be utilizing the website as much as possible. And I don't personally find it very intuitive, and I've gone there trying to find information, and it just sometimes feels like it's a little bit harder to find. And I think accessibility is really important in that regard. So it'd be awesome if it was streamlined and just updated more regularly, and that's something that the town admin and the Board of Selectmen can work together on, making that information more readily accessible in this one central hub. As far as priorities for collaboration, I think number one, as we both talked about, finances and a yearly budget. We want to hear the town administrator's suggestions for adjustments, bring that to the Board of Selectmen, and collaboratively work out what that's going to look like, remembering that we are bringing this person on because they have financial expertise, among other many things. Following the highway department projects and the sewer upgrade to make sure that they're complying with state requirements, and just essentially keeping an eye on those projects, making sure that no balls are dropped and everything's going as it should be, offering support, when needed, and working with the town administrator to help provide the personnel and HR support that we really, really desperately need. Long-term, the support that the admin needs and what collaboration looks like really remains to be seen. I mean, this is new to our town. We've not had an admin before. So as a general leadership principle, though, asking them what they need, even if it means staying out of their way and just offering support when needed, is typically the best tack in my experience. Never micromanaging, just supporting a competent professional and giving them the tools they need to be able to do their jobs.
When I had first heard about a town administrator, I had heard from a lot of people in town opposing views on whether it's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing. A lot of people had concerns, and rightfully so. I think everybody should be skeptical about anything that town government does. But over time, I learned that, this is actually a good thing for the town. This person isn't going to have unlimited checks that they can do whatever they want. They would report to the select board, and the way I look at it is the select board is the board of directors, like a company, and this person would be the chief operating officer that would report to the board. The board would have their own set of ideas, goals, and things that they would like to see done for the town. And through the town administrator, who can be there full-time to execute these things, it would make things streamlined and more efficient, because the Board of Selectmen are part-time volunteers and cannot always be everywhere at all times. Somebody who represents the Board of Selectmen can do that job more effectively, have eyes on operations, make sure we're doing things effectively, efficiently, legally, and just making sure we're doing our job correctly. And if it needs be, handle discipline issues with the Board of Selectmen and make recommendations as well. They are the professional when it comes to municipal government, so they would be advising the board on what to do. And utilizing their grant-seeking opportunities would be another big thing. Looking at ways that they can find money for the town overall, because the departments could look for grants for themselves, which is great, but the town administrator has a lot more resources in general that they can look at for funding for the entire town, no matter what it might be.
Sorry, everybody, my allergies are killing me today, so I'm having trouble talking.
It's that time of year.
It's been said that a lot of the town departments don't play well together. And that having been said, what would be your plan to better unite the departments and to achieve a common goal?
It's funny because I experience this everywhere I've worked. It's a similar thing. I think part of it is the working in isolation thing. That becomes our little world. We only know the pain that we feel, right? We don't know other people's pain unless we're feeling it. And so part of that sometimes is, this is advice I got when I first started teaching in my early 20s. Joan, if you want to get something done, you got to make other people feel your pain. I was like, oh my God, that's terrible advice, but it isn't actually. I see a really good opportunity for department heads, for example, to collaborate. Having meetups among department heads with the Board of Selectmen are great opportunities to provide space for different departments to hear each other's challenges, figure out solutions, working more as a town team as opposed to department silos, which that's the default thing that happens, right? We're all neck deep in our own world. Asking each other at these meetups, what are your successes? Celebrate those. What are your challenges? What are you working on? How can we support you on that? Brainstorming solutions or partial solutions. I mean, we can't always look at one big massive problem if we look at it that way and try and tackle that individually ourselves. It typically doesn't work. But if we all look at ourselves as the part of the power of partial solutions, that's when we can be more effective and more efficient. Tapping into that collective, I think, is really important. I think the key is in not viewing each other as competition for resources, which is really, really hard, especially when you have a super challenging budget. This is another example, though, of resource sharing and how we can use each other's experience and expertise to address problems departments might not even realize overlap. It's recognizing that we all have unique strengths and characteristics that we can bring to the table and finding out what those are and leaving our offices and talking to each other, feeling comfortable and safe doing that.
Simply put, I think it's pretty important to go to individuals and see how they're doing, how the job's affecting them, what their mental state is. You can see when people are disgruntled, they don't want to be a team player, and that could be for a number of factors. As a retail manager and a union steward, I've had to deal with a lot of personnel issues in my life, and I feel like the best way to do that is to just communicate with people one-on-one and give them recognition for their hard efforts. Let them know they're being appreciated for the hard work they're doing, because if people don't get recognition for the hard work they put in, they don't feel valued, and they'll get discouraged. They'll lack ambition and motivation to do their job. And, just seeing what people want, what's bothering them, seeing what you can do to fix their problems personally. And whatever that might be, do your best to address it, and you tell them, I'm going to do the best I can for you. I can't promise, but I'm going to do what I can for you.
In your opinion, what are some of the ways we can be more efficient in town government and increase the value of services to all the residents?
At the risk of sounding redundant, as I mentioned earlier, it's leveraging our town admin for personnel and HR support. That's where supporting our town administrator will be huge, is in that regard. The Board of Selectmen can work with the town admin to identify ways to tap in to the skills and talents of our current staff. I think one of the most important ways to maximize the value of our services is to give town employees and board and committee members the resources and tools they need to do their jobs well. And this means, again, asking them, what do you need, right? Communicating with them regularly, inviting them to meetings to update us, having open, honest conversations. By prioritizing town employees and departments, making sure they have what they need to shine, thrive, and survive day to day and go home happy and feel energized, wanting to come in and do the good work. The services they provide reflect that. Happy employees create better work. I think this is a side note. I wasn't sure about sharing this, but I think I think encouraging folks to get involved and volunteer more. The problem with that is it's a hard one because most folks I know, they really, really want to help. They've just got overfull plates, and I think that's something we can all relate to. But I like to think about how can we incentivize them? What would that look like? Because again, we're talking about the skills and the talents of the people on our boards and committees, but the talents and skills of the people in this town are just vast. And how can we capitalize on the benefits of that? I'd like to talk more about that and think about ways we can incentivize people to share that.
I'm going to say communication between departments and for the townspeople. We need to make sure everybody that works for the town is on the same page so that we can have a clear goal in mind and what we're going to carry through to go with it. A lot of people that work for the town that I've understood say they didn't hear about this, or they weren't aware of this, or we have a problem and no one was alerted about it. I don't think we should have that kind of problem. As a leader, I think it's important to make sure everybody's on the same page, a message is being sent to everybody so that everybody knows what's going on. As far as communication goes to the residents, I think we're doing a lot better job with letting the townsfolk know what's going on. We have to post things in the meeting of the town hall. We have to make sure we get all the minutes posted, but putting things online on the website is great. On Facebook, Code Red, Town Alert app, when we continuously let the town folks know what is going on in town, more people show up, and that's why we have a good turnout here tonight. It's because we went the extra distance to tell everybody, hey, this is what's going on. Everybody please come out, participate. I think that's a good way we'll get people to actually show up to the town meetings and start filling seats up. If people aren't aware of the issues in town, they don't have the opportunity to make a difference themselves as a voter and as a resident. Nobody's going to be able to speak up or make their voices heard if they have no idea what's going on.
Now for the bright side of things. What do you believe is the most encouraging thing about the future of North Brookfield?
This was an easy one, the people. Full stop. I see the majority of North Brookfield folks as super community oriented, wanting it to thrive, wanting to see more activities in town. I'm encouraged every single day by our beautiful, quiet, neighbor helps neighbor culture. It's what brought me back here and made me want to raise my kids here. My adult children still talk about how much they loved our library story hour with Rosemary McKenzie. And when we hang their little handmade crafts on our Christmas tree and sing Frogman and Corton, we think of our every time. We have creative new businesses like Jars Cafe, psyched. Common Ground Coffee Works has a brand new breakfast lunch menu, looks amazing. The Townhouse Project is providing an awesome arts environment, collaborating with the school for the Cool Kids Choir, best name ever as a side note, offering a computer program for adults and students. We have a phenomenal theater guild supporting reconstruction of a townhouse stage. All the money in the world cannot buy that kind of rural charm. That's something I've seen as a constant, actually, decade after decade living here. And it's what makes this such a special place to be to me, and one worth serving and preserving.
I know for a fact that one of the biggest complaints in town is the roads. I hear it all the time. I'm pretty excited that I found out that there is funding coming in through grants and Chapter 90 money to actually get the ball rolling on some of these projects. Now, I know most of these are main roads. Everybody has their own road that they live on. We hear it all the time, pave this road, why won't the town pave this road? We're going to start with the main roads in town, and I think that's going to be great for us. The sidewalks are eventually going to be done too. Parks and Recreation Committee is doing a great job with updating our parks, our forests, providing new playground equipment, whatever they can do, and they do a phenomenal job. They're one of the most motivated and positive committees in the town, and I like what they're doing because they're volunteering to put the real blood and sweat into making the town look better and be enjoyed for everybody, not just the town, anybody who comes to our town. People can come to town to use any of our services, And I love that, you know? I love people to say, well, North Brookfield's got a great playground, let's go to that one. Or they have a great town forest, it's really awesome, we should check it out. Not only that, the businesses in town too. If we can keep some great businesses here that everybody loves and enjoys, that's not just gonna be revenue from the townsfolk, that's gonna be revenue from all over the place. And if we have staples in our town that everybody enjoys, that's gonna put a positive image on our town in general.
Is there anything else you'd like the voters to know? Very simple.
Oh my goodness. All the things. So in case you hadn't heard, I like growing up here, shocker. And as I mentioned, graduating with about the same 51 other kids I started school with in kindergarten. Jason Petritis was actually in my class, which is crazy. We didn't graduate together, but we grew up together. I still have newspaper clippings from when our high school girls basketball team made the state finals 2 years in a row. One of the headlines said, North Brookfield closes barn door on Monty Tech. How clever is that? I want to be a part of feeding that tradition of rural pride. I think often for a lot of community roles, I'm not just speaking necessarily North Brookfield, I'm just saying across the board, we have many folks who might be considered overly enthusiastic and underexperienced running for town roles. And I have heard and seen this frustration from NB folks recently, both in person and on social media. In this upcoming transition to a town administrator, we need someone with the experience and knowledge to make that transition as smooth as possible, and I have that skill set. I don't attend Board of Selectmen meetings in person because with my current schedule, I often have evening sessions with my students. This is something I would clearly change if I was elected. I would readjust my schedule, but that wasn't something that's been possible. I watch them remotely though, and I also get updates from other boards and committee members. Though I'm a private person, I am in touch with what's going on in town. There are 23 hours in a day outside of a meeting, and that's where I live, doing the work. I'm a seasoned leader, I'm using that term seasoned so I don't have to say older, who's learned that enthusiasm isn't enough. It's persistence, experience, and a very thick skin, I think, are my greatest assets. And those I offer to you in this role, and when I say I'm going to show up for you, I will. Thank you.
I'd just like to let everybody know that I'm extremely dedicated to this town. Ever since I moved here, I got involved with the Finance Committee and the Planning Board because I wanted to get involved and make a difference. I've attended almost every Board of Selectmen meeting and town meeting since I've moved here so that I could learn more about how the town operates and the job itself. You know, I've gotten to learn a lot about each department, every committee, and stay on top of all the happenings in town. I have professional existing relationships with the majority of everybody who works for the town, and I think that's going to make communication and understanding current challenges that everybody faces a lot easier. There's a lot of projects and things going on in the future in North Brookfield, and you know, I'd love to be a part of helping to make a difference with that. I just want to give my time to it, and you know, I spend a lot of time giving myself for this town as it is, and I'm willing to give even more time. You can ask my wife, she makes a fuss about how little I'm home in the evenings, but you know, I do it because I love it, because you know, I'm a public servant and I want to do what's best for everybody. I want to be the voice and representation for everybody here and outside of here. And I really just would love you all to vote for me come election day.
I'd like to thank you both for coming tonight. It helps a lot when we can hear what your thoughts are and your approach to things. I'd like to encourage people too, out there on TV land. You know, we have a lot of needs. We have committees and commissions in town that drastically need people. And there's a lot of rewarding things that actually do happen when you volunteer for a committee and you take part of it. You become part of the system. And growing up, my mother's always told me if you want to change something, the way to do it is from the inside. You can't stand outside and yell about it. You have to get inside and work at it to change it. So I'd ask, volunteer. If you're new to town, please step up. You know, come on down. We're not a bad bunch. We don't bite, and you'd find that there's a lot of camaraderie between the different committees and groups in town that are making it happen. So I'd like to invite you all to talk with the candidates tonight while we're all right here. If you have specific questions, you can ask them right here, right now, and I'm sure they'd love to give you an answer. And again, thanks for coming.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, ma'am.
could they tell us what they think about our senior center and what they can do for the seniors?
Well, we said no questions from the audience, so if you want to ask that question, you can ask it, and they'll give you the direct answer. How's that? Okay. We did that not in any attempt to hide any information or anything, but it works much better if we have a prepared format. That's why we didn't take questions from the audience tonight. So, but we're giving you an opportunity to ask right now. So, with that, I'll bid you adieu. Thank you.